Hey everybody, what's up? I want to come on here this Mother's Day and happy Mother's Day to all watching. I know my mom, I'm going to be wishing her a happy Mother's Day later today. But I wanted to come on here to talk about various subjects today as quickly as I can because, you know, um, like I said, it's Mother's Day and I have to get ready for that later as well. But I wanted to come on here and just talk about a few things, talk about a variety of subjects. Now, you might notice that there's no StreamYard thing on the back here because I'm actually doing this through Google Chrome, which I haven't done for a while. I actually would do this through Internet Explorer or something like that. And I'm doing that right now. I'm doing this through Google Chrome, which I think is the better option, if you will. But yeah, I want to come on here and talk about a variety of topics, as well as I take care of a few things here. Hold on a sec. Let me just make sure everything's good here. Okay. But yeah, I have a variety of topics I wanted to talk about today. 6 of them, real quickly. And those topics are: one, the first one being states not reopening quick enough and people growing impatient. Second one being VOD, video on demand, being the future of movies. Number 3, more old school crushes tropes we've seen before, like we currently see with Spike and Rarity and My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Talk more about that. 4, fans at sporting events despite what governors are saying. More on that. I've talked about that briefly. The video kind of stopped abruptly because the battery had to charge. So we'll talk about that. 5, could cinematic be the direction wrestling promotions? I forgot to put go to, so I have to switch that. Hold on for a sec. There we go. Go to get fans interested again. And finally, 6, wrestling fans triggered twice this week, and that's by a variety of people that mentioned some things that they did that did not sit well with fans. Period. It did not sit well with them. Period. So, with that said, though, let's get into some discussions here, shall we? And the first one, like I said, is number 1. The first topic we're going to start off with: states not reopening quick enough and people growing impatient. Okay. So, I'm still going to do some. Oh, the wrong way. Hold on for a sec. There we go. Just raising this up a little bit. There we go. That's the volume on my mic and my thing here. But like I said, yeah, the first topic is states not reopening quick enough, and people growing impatient. Okay, so in case you guys don't know, A lot of well, like I said, in case you guys don't know, um, the recent slow the spread campaign finally ended. The what was originally 15 days and 30 days finally came to an end, and the president basically has now put it in the hands of the governors, with I guess I guess with the what's the word, with the mandatory order that they start reopening, but do it in various phases or do it as best they can, if you catch my drift. So, yeah, a lot of states have started to follow suit, some a lot quicker, maybe a lot sooner than others. We know that the less infected states and all that, the less, or the states with the less cases reported and all that of this virus have started to reopen a lot sooner, a lot quicker, started to get back to normal a lot quicker. Well, other states have yet to do that, like the bigger states or the more infected states, like Texas, Florida, California. Even though there's parts of these states, like here, I live in California, like I said, even though there's parts of these states, counties, if you will, towns, rural towns, small cities, and all that, that are starting to slowly reopen. There's a lot of it that is yet to do so, and as a result, a lot of fans, I should say, but a lot of people in the state are growing impatient. And it's not just regular citizens in the states either. It's a lot of people that own massive businesses, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, or huge businesses that are growing impatient as well. As a matter of fact, one person that owns a business, a plant, several plants, or across California, or is mostly located in California for the business, has even threatened to shut down the main facility here in California and focus and basically transfer that facility elsewhere outside of California, because our governor is not being quick enough on the ball to um, get us back to back to a state of normalcy. So even like I said, owners, CEOs, and all that, they're growing impatient. As a matter of fact, every time our governor does a briefing or doesn't do a briefing, or should I say on days he doesn't do a briefing, people are protesting. As a matter of fact, uh, about a week ago, this past Wednesday, was what was it? It was the See, today's the 10th. Yesterday was the 9th. 8th was Friday. 7th, 6th. Um, basically, basically on the last um, Wednesday in April, which I think, if I'm right, if I look at the calendar here for a second, was the 29th. Um, but on the 29th of April, when the governor came out and did another briefing, you didn't just have protests in front of the Capitol, but you had protests in San Francisco, LA, Huntington Beach, various parts of the state. And these crowds were huge, basically saying, or basically trying to send the message of Newsom, enough's enough. It's over. It's time to reopen. It's time to reopen and do it now. And you, and again, these are massive protests, even to the point that police have had to step in and arrest several people, maybe even the organizers of these protests, to try to send a message. But yeah, folks are growing impatient, even to the point that you even have counties, you even have full counties like Yuba County defying orders a lot sooner, or defying orders, I should say, and opening up a lot sooner than the governor would like, because pretty much they're growing impatient. A lot of people are saying that if you look at the numbers, it shows we can reopen, things are okay. And as I've said before, I think the governor here in California, as well as other governors out around the country, they know all this. They see the numbers and they see the decline. But here's the problem. Even though they see it and they understand that, hey, as much as they could easily just come out and say, okay, our state's fully reopened, everything's back to normal, they realize there are still people out there that are unsure. They are unsure of whether or not they can believe that because, as I said before in a video, they're getting mixed signals and they don't like that. They do not like getting mixed signals, no matter what the circumstance. They don't like it whatsoever. They don't like getting these mixed signals, and all they want in return is a straight answer. And because they're not getting that straight answer, it's frustrating them. It's making them mad. It's making them angry. And again, all they want is a straight answer from the media. Every channel, CNN, NBC, ABC, you name it, they want a straight answer. They don't want to wait any longer. They want a straight answer and they want it now. And again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. And everybody, all I'm trying to say is I've said this before and I'll say it again. And a lot of people have said this. When you get down to it, this whole situation, as serious as it has to be taken, the one true thing that we know that's really behind it, being pushed as hard as it is, and certain governors across the country reopening, but not reopening in a way that a lot of people feel they should, there's one driving force behind it. And that driving force is politics. It's Democrats versus Republicans. This is the battle. This is one of those mainstay battles that happens every 2 to 4 years. And I say every 2 to 4 years because one thing a lot of people point out is, hey, haven't you noticed that as serious as this virus is to take, that the reason it's getting pushed as rapidly as it is and why certain tragedies and prayers go out to the families that have lost loved ones because of this, or during this time, I should say as well, that why some tragedies and passings are linked to this virus, even if they may not be because of this virus. It's all politically based. There are certain media, news media, that doesn't want certain Republicans or even Democrats in office across the country because they want these people. I mean, you got to remember earlier this year, what was the main news item being talked about? What was the main news item being talked about? Pelosi trying to get Trump impeached. And that didn't work. And now some people are throwing out memes that show that Mr. Burns character or some character like him from the Simpsons, I should say, from the Simpsons or other media. They're showing memes of characters like that going, okay, impeachment failed, unleash the virus or whatever. That's what it is. And a lot of people see that. And a lot of those people actually are even those that are part of these protests. They see the truth. They see the fact that, hey, look, the numbers are going down. We're heading into summer. That heat's supposed to really help decrease, slow down, if not probably kill this virus. And more importantly, they see the fact that, you know what, this is also politically pushed. I mean, there are some people, some customers I talk to when I check them out at my job, that they even agree with this. Whether they like Trump or they don't, they have agreed that it is politically based. And yes, like I said, some of them either like Trump or they don't. some that don't like Trump saying, "Hey, yeah, that's what I want. I want the guy out." So they probably be all for an impeachment or for some kind of way of getting him out of office and stuff like that. And again, that's what a lot of people in these protests probably see as well. And it's not just because of Trump. It's mainly because they see the truth. They see that, you know, the the governor of California and governor of Michigan, governor of Florida, and governor of Texas, Ohio, wherever. The reason they're not opening up quick enough, despite numbers showing that things are getting slowly back to normal, but getting back to normal in a way that there's less cases being reported, if none at all, in the past few weeks. You know, that the reason they feel things are not reopening as quickly as they should is because they see it's politically based and they don't like it. As a matter of fact, one thing I've pointed out before is if you listen to some of the listen to the briefings or what our governor here in California says, or maybe even your governor in the state where you live says, that even though they do talk about the state and what needs to be done, you notice that throughout their speeches, they also kind of bring up the nation, if not the world, but mostly the nation, as if they're trying to campaign. And that's what it is. They are secretly in between their speeches and the discussions and their updates onto what's going on. They are slowly doing this. They're slowly weaving in the message, vote, governor, vote so and so 2024 or vote so and so 2020, because they know there's that little blank line um, in the ballot to where you can add a name. They're hoping you're either going to go vote so and so 2020 or vote so and so 2024. That's what it is. And a lot of people know that. A lot of people know that, they could see that, and that's what's ticking them off. They don't like the fact that the governors of their states are not coming out and saying, look, we can do this. We could reopen fully right now. That is true. Ooh, but we can't because there are still certain people that are unsure whether or not this virus is gone. So we want to take precautions. But also, they want the governors not just to admit something like that, but to admit, oh, and by the way, I'm kind of slowly campaigning for presidency of the United States. That's what they want. They want the truth. They want, like, people want Newsom to come out and say, yeah, I can reopen all California fully. But there are still those that are worried that the virus may not completely be gone and they don't want to take a chance. And, oh, by the way, I'm kind of secretly also running for president. So vote for me 2020 or 2024. You know, that's what they see. And that's why they're growing impatient about their states not reopening quick enough, because all they feel the governors are doing is stalling and kind of slowly campaigning. I mean, look, they do have to agree, whether they like to or not, that the governors are doing what they can to help, try to get to that point where the states are fully reopened, but reopened to the point that not to, but reopened to the point that even those that are still concerned and worried about the virus being out there can at least step out and be like, okay, everything's cool, we're ready to go. I mean, one of the things that, governors bring up is, and this is one thing that really gets people pissed off, I should say, excuse my language, but ticked off, I should say, is the governors are always saying, okay, these are the 4 phases we got to go through to reopen and try to get a semi portion of normalcy back. But we also have this additional few steps to go before we can be fully normal again. And oh, by the way, one of those main steps we have to get to, or um, objectives we have to reach, we need a vaccine or immunity. And there's a lot of people that call out the governors for the fact that, hey, a vaccine could be a year from now, or more than that, or immunity is right around the corner with freaking summer and these hot seasons. What's your point? What's going on? Why are you so impatient to, why are you so, not impatient, but why are you so stubborn not to reopen the states? They'll point all these out, and the governors, believe it or not, they will listen. They hear it. They do hear it, and they probably understand it. Much as I hate saying that, they probably understand where people are coming from. I mean, that's why our governor basically said, "Look, I'm going to let some things reopen now. I get, how you guys feel. He even said on the first day of May, which is known as May Day, hey, I respect people expressing themselves. I get how you feel, but we need to take these steps. But again, I will admit that what he should do is come out and say, I understand how some of you feel right now that are protesting, that are that are growing frustrated and all that. I get it. But the reason we're not moving quicker than you think we should is because there are still those that feel they could be receptive of the virus, and we don't want to cause any panic. So that's why we're going in the direction we're going. So all we ask is you be patient with what we're doing. And that's about it. And again, I get how people feel. They don't like it. They don't like the fact that they have to keep waiting, and that's fine. But I've got a feeling as time goes on, places will start to slowly reopen. Yeah, they're going to have to heed to certain rulings like distancing and all that. Like if you're going camping, you're going to have to make sure that your campsite with your family and friends, whatever, is maybe 10 feet apart. And that's it. Give room for people to walk around that would keep them 6 feet apart or so around that. And there you go. Again, you can't, again, look, there's no doubt that the governors know about the heat situation. They know heat's going to help decrease this virus. But again, they know that and again, they know all this. They know the fact that there's a downcline, ein, right now, or a decline, I should say. But they're not moving fast. But here's the thing, the reason they're not moving as fast as people want is because they also realize there are still people out there that are not sold on the idea that things are going to get better. Some people feel that this is going to go on and on and on because, again, they're getting mixed signals. They're getting mixed signals from these various news outlets, online, on television. They're getting mixed signals from the various sites out there. They're getting mixed signals everywhere. They don't know who to believe. And all they want is one straight, singular answer from everybody. And once they get that, then they'll be like, okay, now we can, stop worrying as much. And basically, what I'm trying to say is they realize that what I'm trying to say is once they get that one true answer from everybody, one answer that's the same all across the board, that's when they'll stop worrying and realize, okay, we got the answer. Everybody's telling us the same thing. Okay, now we can calm down. Now we can kind of probably, enter that phase of, okay, maybe we have some normalcy coming back. So yeah, there's no doubt people. So yeah, again, there's no doubt that's one of the reasons. But yeah, states not reopening quick enough and people growing impatient. That is true. That is indeed true. But again, it's because everybody's getting mixed signals. Nobody knows who to believe. They're not getting one straight true answer. And it's also the fact that the governors, they understand this, despite how you feel about them or you don't. They understand this, but they also understand and that there are those that are still worried about it, and that's why they're not, moving quick enough, not going like, okay, everything reopened kind of deal. They're not doing that quick enough. They're not doing it in that manner, I should say, because they know there are still people that are worried. So yeah, I mean, I say this. I'll say this: give it to God. If you're a religious person of any kind, give it to God or whoever you believe in, and just be patient. Here's the thing: patience pays off, and before you know it, you're going to get at least something out of your governors that's going to say, okay, here's a bit of normalcy, have fun. and that's about it. I mean, I understand some governors probably take it a little too far, and there are some governors like ours here in California that feel certain governors are taking it too far. Like I've said before, there was one governor in Michigan that the governor in Michigan, I should say, was reported of, there were reports of what I'm trying to say, that the governor in Michigan wouldn't even let people step outside the front doors. And like I said, even our governor feels like, hey, that's taking it a little too far. That's going way too far. It's like, what are you doing? You're not even letting people get outside the house. It's one of those situations. But yeah, there is basically a lot of things. But again, like I said, there are a lot of, but again, there are a lot of things that are happening. Maybe not as quickly as people want, but they are happening. And like I said, it may not be as quick as they want, but it's going to happen. You just got to be patient. Like I said, the governors understand everything. They know about the decline. They know people feel this way. They know people can see through what they're saying. They can see that. They know that. They know this. You can't tell me they don't own everything. But the reason they're holding off or taking their time is because there are still people that are getting these mixed signals that are unsure of whether or not it's safe or it's not safe, or at least decent enough to be like, okay, we can go out now. That's what they're worried about. That is what they're worried about. And you honestly, you can't blame the governors for being like, well, if we do this, we're gonna get protested. I mean, think about this. Let's say the governors say, okay, we're gonna reopen everything and go about our daily lives like nothing really happened. You can't tell me they won't have people in protest wearing masks, eye shields, whatever, gloves, being like, close off the state, or close portions of the state, close portions of the states and all that, because they're worried about what's going on. They're worried that the virus is still here. So that's what they want to avoid, is another situation where more people will protest, but this time be people wearing protective gear like gloves or masks or whatever, and basically saying, close off the state, or close parts of the state, or it's not safe, or whatever. They don't want to go through that, so they want to make sure everything is accounted for, or at least taken care of. So again, despite how you might feel about it, it's going to take time, and if you just be patient enough, before you know it, things will reopen a lot quicker than you think. So that's all I'm going to say on that topic. Next topic we're going to talk about is VOD, video on demand, being the future of movies. Okay, so VOD, video on demand, is basically another term for streaming movies on your television before they come out to home video. One of the traditions, mostly in the past several years, if not the past half decade or so, is a movie, as it's heading towards home video from theaters 4 months afterwards, that literally 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe even a month before, will end up on VOD, video on demand, with its Xfinity, AT&T, Verizon, um, what Frontier, Cablevision, or places like VDU, DirecTV, or Vudu, I should say, Vudu, DirecTV, Amazon, you name it. Movies Anywhere, iTunes, whatever those platforms are, usually about a couple weeks, if not a month before the movie, after it's had its 2-3 months run on in theaters, literally about a month and a half later or two, will end up on VOD about a couple weeks, if not a month before its physical home video release. Well, because of what's been going on, a lot of movies lately have been heading in the direction of VOD when they were initially meant for theatrical release. For example, Trolls World Tour, Trolls 2, if you will, was originally meant for theatrical release last month, I believe, but instead ended up in theaters. Now, Universal did play it off by saying they were going to do both theaters and VOD of the movies on the same day. Of course, the National Association of Theater Owners, NATO, did not take too kindly to that. And the person that put out the statement that they were going to go in that direction of VOD and theaters the same day, I believe they had to retract the statement and say, oh, no, 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 that's not what we meant. We meant this. What we actually meant was to say, what we actually meant to say was this is instead of that, or whatever, something like that. But anyway, Trolls World Tour was the first of several movies that have gone in this direction. And but the uniqueness about Universal doing this is they didn't make it available to purchase to have at home permanently. No, instead, they ended up putting it for rental only. Yeah. So what you would buy at $19.99 or $24.99 or $27.99 when it comes out officially to home video, physically and streamingly, that from a rental perspective, they're saying, hey, we're going to give you 24 to 48 hours with this for $20, and then that's it. The only way you can watch it again is to do it again, is to rent it again. And this is what's caused them to have a huge financial success by doing this. And that's ticked off the people at NATO. It's ticked them off because of the fact that, what they were against actually became a success. Now, NATO's saying, hey, or the NATO related theater chains like AMC and Regal and a few others, they're saying, hey, we're not going to put your movies out on our big screens anymore because you're doing something like this and you feel this is more profitable over big screen. And that again goes back to that statement that had to be retracted because Universal realizes, oh, a lot of our financial success does come from the box office. We need to shut our mouths and say something differently. And I think the head person in charge of Universal, Comcast, NBC, and all that talked to the person in charge of Universal Pictures and home video distributing and movies and all that to get them to retract what they said because they're like, oops, we made a big mistake here. Made a big mistake in saying what they did. Now, again, Trolls World Tour though, basically became a huge success because of this direction they went in. Apparently, a lot of people purchased the rental for 24 to 48 hours to have. And there's no doubt, you can't tell me they probably don't have it. They don't own Trolls World Tour now too, because either they found a way to capture it, which they probably did, or they recorded it, which they probably did. We don't know. So, yeah, Trolls World Tour became a huge success. That success, that financial success, ticked NATO off even more. Now, NATO is not National Association of Theater Owners. They're not against going in this direction if a studio has to. They're not against studios doing this if they have to, as long as they at least be acknowledged by it. At least if a studio comes out and tells them, "Hey, we got to do this because if we wait later on to a later release date, we may not have it make the money we need to make it a financial success in some ways, make the money back that could help us produce a sequel or a cinematic universe like we're planning." Which is why you have movies like Artemis Fowl and even Scoob heading to video on demand or streaming services in the next few weeks. As a matter of fact, this week, Scoob is heading to VOD, not just for rental, but to buy. So I am going to be buying Scoob. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, it's heading there. And Warner Brothers is going that route to where, like I said, it's identical to what Universal did with Trolls World Tour. But they're adding in the Now, but they're also adding in the purchasing deal because they realize, hey, not only can we make money back from renting, from people renting this movie, because there are still fans, families, people that will rent the movie first before they buy it to see if it's any good or if it's as good as people, making it out to be. And then later on, they might buy it, you know. But anyway, they're going down a route that, like I said, rental wise is identical to what Universal did with Trolls World Tour, but also adding in the buy option, knowing that people might just straight up buy it. But here's the thing, the rental option will probably be around the same price Trolls World Tour was when Universal went only with that. Well, the buying option will be for the various video formats you want to buy it in. So you might say, okay, here's $19.99 for standard. Here's $24.99 for HDX, aka Blu-ray. Here's $27.99 for HDR, aka Ultra Blu-ray. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. So they're going to have these various tiers, if you will, when it comes to purchasing the movie instead of renting it. And again, the reason they're going to the rental direction, despite how people might feel about that, is because of the fact that they know people will want to rent it first to see if it's any good. And if it's not, if it is good, they'll probably go and buy it later on. And my thumb just hit the mic there. I do apologize. But they'll go back and watch it, and they'll go back later and buy it. They will. They will go back and buy it. They will. That's what they'll do. They'll go back and buy the movie. But if it's not as good, but the reason they have the rental option is because there's a lot of people that will come out, they will rent it, and they will rent it just to review it and then maybe later on buy it, or just rent it and say, yeah, it's good, but it's only good for a rental. It's more of a rental movie than anything else. It's like something you could just rent for that 24 to 48 hours or 72 hours, plop yourself and your family and your kids in front of it, and there you go. It's a good weekend popcorn movie, and that's it. That's basically why you got that option as well. Well, there are fans overall of Hanna-Barbera and of Scooby-Doo that will probably buy the movie. I mean, I like Scooby-Doo. I'm going to straight up buy it because you know what? I think it looks good. And to me, Warner Brothers, they put too much effort into this not to be supported. I mean, the original idea, and they still can go with it, was to get this in theaters and start that trend. And they still can do that. They can still do that. As a matter of fact, one of the things people talk about as soon as theaters reopen, maybe as soon as June or July, in some capacity, is taking movies that are already on home video and putting them on the big screen to drag people back in. Not just the movies that are scheduled for theatrical release this year, but some that have been out of theaters for about a year or so, putting it back in and bringing people in that way. And movies like back-to-back showings of Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame has been discussed. Things like Scoob could be thrown in there, stuff like that, even Trolls World Tour, if Universal can work something out with theater chains. But yeah, Scoob could still get its theatrical run, even if it's just for like maybe a week or two after it's already been on home video or VOD, if you know what I mean. But yeah, the thing is, VOD being the future of movies, is that possible? In a situation like this right now, where even though, as I've said before, we're heading down a decline, where states are starting to reopen, trying to get back to some normalcy and all that. You got sporting events starting to pick back up with little or no audience, if you know what I mean. With all that happening, is VOD the future? I would say at least for the rest of this year it is. I don't know about next year, but I know for the rest of this year it is. So We'll have to wait and see what other movies probably head that direction. I know John Campy answered a question I asked him about this a couple of weeks ago, and he gave an idea of several movies that might head that way. But as I said before, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, for right now, for the foreseeable future, at least for the rest of this year, I believe VOD is definitely going to be the future of movies. I mean, Artemis Fowl is heading towards Disney Plus in the next few weeks, if not the next month. You know, we've already seen things like Onward, you know, not even a few weeks in theaters, and it's already on Disney Plus and video on demand. Um, you know, we've seen early releases of Frozen 2 and Rise of Skywalker onto Disney Plus a lot sooner than they should be. And Soul, also another Disney Pixar film, that's up in the air. That's still slated for theatrical release, but that could end up going VOD as well, depending on the circumstances. I think that might be the only Disney Pixar, if not overall Disney, really theatrical release film that does, or Disney 2020 film that gets a theatrical release, along with maybe Black Widow, which is by Marvel, and Jungle Cruise, perhaps. But yeah, you know, video on demand and is definitely for right now, at least to the end of the year, despite things being on a decline and you know getting better and everything, especially as we head into summer, it's definitely going to be the future because again, there's still going to be people of uncertainty, and even despite the fact the theater chains will reopen, one of the main focuses is drawing the crowds back in, and they'll probably have to do that by putting movies back in there that are already on home video, so that even if you didn't get the theatrical experience at first, like with Avengers Endgame and Infinity War, you can get it like that, um, at least for that first week or two of the theater chains reopening. So yeah, though, I think VOD is the future, at least of movies, is indeed the future of movies, at least for the rest of this year. And we'll see what happens when we go into 2021. All right, number 3, more old school crushes tropes we've seen before, like we currently see with Spike and Rarity in My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Okay, so I think back on Friday, I believe, Friday or Thursday. Let me check. Let me check for a second. Back to the uploads here. So yeah, back on Friday, I talked about how Spike and Rarity's relationship came to be in the show Friendship is Magic, or how Spike and Rarity's relationship came to be in the show, is an old school trope we've seen before. And what I mean by that is we have seen this trope of a guy or a gal crushing on another character, whether it's a girl crushing on a guy or a guy crushing on a girl. We have seen this various times. And basically, you know, besides the fact that we've had some moments here and there, they've never fully gone through with it. You know, I mentioned Rescue Rangers and how Chip and Dale felt about Gadget and them having feelings for her and her actually acknowledging it, but them not going any further than, you know, moments here and having little moments here and there, little teasing moments and all that. I've mentioned how they had the thing with Tailspin with Baloo and Rebecca. You know, heck, I've even brought up Sonic Sat AM with, and even the Sonic comic books by Archie Comics, where later on in the comics you had something, and even earlier on in the comics when she first appeared, and like I said, sometimes throughout the show, you had little maybe teases that there was an attraction or a crush between Bunny and Sonic. And there's various other discussions or other examples as well, all that I've mentioned. For for example, there was one I didn't mention. I was thinking about mentioning it, and I should have, but I didn't. But another example of an old school crush trope, or the trope of the old school crushes, basically, guys being attracted to gals and vice versa, believe it or not, can be seen in the classic 1980s or mid 1980s Bearstein Bears Saturday morning cartoon. And the uh, it was in the 11-minute episode Substitute Teacher, or No More Substitute Teachers, or something like that. And the main plot of the story, and it actually got adapted into a big chapter book as well for the Bearstein Bear Big Chapter Book series. But the plot of this short was Teacher Jane, who in the 2003 to 2005 series on PBS became Sister Bear's teacher. Um, in the original mid 80s cartoon was Brother's teacher, brother and sister's teacher, because I guess they attended the same class or something. But anyway, was Brother's teacher. And was also the teacher of the bully, or friendly bully, or whatever you want to call him, the tweener antagonist, whatever, Too Tall Grizzly. Anyway, long story short, in the substitute teacher short, Too Tall is not in favor of having a substitute. Basically, if they feel, hey, we don't need a substitute, we can do things on our own, we can have the class to ourselves, stuff like that, or some along the lines of they don't want a substitute teacher because I guess they don't want anybody replacing Teacher Jane, at least for a day. So they're setting up. So basically, throughout the cartoon, they're setting up all these pranks and traps, all these booby traps and all that to prank the teacher, thinking the teacher's gonna be an old hag, an old school kind of hag like woman. But the moment the substitute teacher arrives, because we do get to that moment, the revelation of who the substitute teacher is. The moment the substitute teacher arrives, every boy that's involved in this, from Too Tall to Brother Bear to Cousin Fred, members of Too Tall's gang, the moment they see the moment the revelation of the substitute teacher is made, we see who it is. The reaction is just like, whoa, who's this? And how do I put it? Dang, kind of deal. That's the reaction. The reaction is basically like, who's this babe, kind of deal. Who's this hot mama, if you will? Because basically they find out that the substitute teacher is actually a very young lady, a very young girl. Well, not younger than them, but very young girl, almost fresh out of college, out of high school, who's standing in for Teacher Jane. And they see that she's actually very athletic because a basketball kind of rolls towards her. She asks Too Tall to hold one of her books, grabs the basketball, and actually does like a little dunk with it, and kind of shows that, hey, she might be a lot cooler than you think she is, along with being beautiful. And it's in that moment, though, that we get that old school crush trope, that trope of we get that old school crushes trope utilized, because all of a sudden, the moment this teacher is revealed, as a matter of fact, let me see if I can find out what the name of the teacher is. Hold on for a sec. There you go. See who it is. Who is it? Okay, we actually got a fandom form on here. Okay, here we go. So let's see. Let's see. Do, see. Doesn't say who the sub is. I'm trying to see who it is. I know they had a name for the substitute. Okay, hold on. Let me. If you hear anything, I do apologize. Let's see.
Hello, could you direct me to Teacher Jane's room? I'm her substitute.
You're a substitute?
Excuse me? Oh, that belongs to me. My name is Teacher Charlene.
Oh, there it is. That's the name, Teacher Charlene. Okay. So anyway, like I said, anyway, the moment they see this Teacher Charlene, that's when, like I said, the old school crush trope comes into play, because suddenly the expression on all the boys' face is like, again, it's like, oh my gosh, where did this angel come from? Where did this heavenly angel come from, kind of deal. I mean, because they all get these looks on the face like, okay, this is our substitute. Who? I don't mind. you know, like, ooh, this is our substitute. Studying, here I come, kind of deal. Because even Too Tall's expression when they see her is like, he's like, "You're a substitute." It's like, nobody could believe it. And it kind of is relatable to real life situations, and when it comes to substitutions, because I remember as a kid, and I know kids and teens nowadays, and even college students, when they end up having a substitute teacher or a professor or whatever, they will think, well, it's probably just going to be someone we've seen before, old school, whatever, and then suddenly it turns out to be somebody. Holy moly, where'd this person come from, kind of deal. And that's when things start to you start getting those crushes developed. Again, going back to the Bernstein Bears big chapter book series, they even did a book called Queenie's Big Crush, where Queenie developed a crush on the new art teacher, or the substitute art teacher that they had. So yeah, it's fun. So yeah, even Bernstein Bears had it. And like I said, Rescue Rangers had it with Chip and Dale crushing on Gadget, and even had it with characters crushing on them. Like you had Tammy Squirrel in one of the very first episodes, Adventures in Squirrel City, crushing on Chip. And, the rest of the Rangers having to wake him up and make him realize that. You had Foxglove Bat, voiced by the late Deborah Wally, God rest her soul, crushing on Dale, and Dale actually became receptive of it. So you had all this kind of stuff. And then, Tailspin, with Baloo and Rebecca, teases there and all that. I mean, there was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff that they would tease, hint at, and all that. I mean, Bonkers had it in a sense with Bonkers and Fawn, despite they were an item pretty much. They would kind of play it off like there was a crush between them, and they both kind of acknowledged that. Fawn would acknowledge it with Bonkers. You even had, let's see, what's you even had Mighty Ducks. I think Mighty Ducks, yeah. Mighty Ducks even kind of teased it a little bit with, Tanya Wild Wing, when Tanya thought Wild Wing was dead, and then she fired a blast from a puck blaster saying it was for Wild Wing, and he just comes right up next to her and says, "Thanks, Tanya," and she's like, "Wild Wing, you're alive," and it's like, okay. And then you had a moment at the end of A Traitor Among Us where Mallory slipped into something nice for a mall crawl, as she calls it. and it just all of a sudden nosedive, and Duke are like, oh my god, where did this woman come from? Where did this side of Mallory come from? It's like you get those moments there. Heck, even Gummy Bears had it with Sunny crushing on Gusto, and Barbet and Buddy Barbet crushing on her, and stuff like that. So you had all these old school moments to where they teased something between the characters, but they never went anywhere with them. It was only a tease of, hey, there's something there between them, but that's about it. We're not going to go any further unless they decided to. Unless they felt like, okay, we're getting towards the end of the series, or we're going to be doing a movie, and that's when we're going to redo a revelation or something like that, of romance between characters, the certain characters that people knew probably had something between them, stuff like that. So again, Spike and Rarity's crush, relationship, and all that. Spike's crush on her, her receptive of it, the relationship overall. It's not the first time we've seen something like this in a show. We've seen it many times in animation, in comics, in live action. Heck, I brought up Disney's Blank Check, which was a movie. And what was the center romance between there? You know what I'm saying? So the point is, when you get down to it, there are more old school crushes that we've seen before, like we currently see with Spike and Rarity and My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, that kind of shows that no matter how you feel about it, it's something that's always going to be part of media, whether it's animation, live action, or comics. And stuff like even the Bearstein Bears is a prime example of that, especially from the mid 80s version of the Bearstein Bears. It is a prime example. All right, so the next topic, number 4, fans at sporting events despite what state governors are saying. Now, I talked about this briefly before my GoPro's battery died on me, so I had to recharge it. But real quickly, we hear governors like Governor Newsom here in California, and probably other governors saying, oh, we're not going to have big crowds or anything. We're not going to have fans attending big sporting events and all that. We're not going to have this or that. And as I said before, and as I said in that video, we're getting to a point of the year where things can change, where the tone and the thought process of our governors across the country are going to change, who feel the same way. They are going to basically say, they can, because they can say that now, but give it a few weeks or so, weather kicks in, things get better, the decline gets even better, and they're going to come out and and they're going to start singing a different tune. And it won't be because of protest or potentially the president having to use absolute authority to overthrow the decisions and say, hey, look, there's a big, massive decline in this country. You need to let people gather together with sporting events. I mean, our own president is expecting over 2,500 people at a rally down the line. So if he has to be the one that steps in, he'll be the one that steps in and says, hey, people are allowed to gather for these events, even if it's in small groups or increments, if you will. They're allowed to come together. So I don't. So honestly, I don't think fans not being at sporting events or audiences not being at sporting events is going to be, for the rest of the year or even into parts of next year. It's just right now because the numbers are not. Because of the fact that the numbers are going down, but not at a point where even governors can be like, okay, we need to do this, we can do this, we can do that. Just because they're not at that number now doesn't mean they won't reach them, because they will reach them. They will head in that direction. And that's where these governors need to wake up and realize, hey, maybe people can get back together. If you're a governor and you're basically saying, hey, we're going to allow all these other places to reopen, but adhere to distancing rules, then you can apply the same thing to sporting events. You could do that. You can have the commentators say, yeah, you see the people in the stands, and even though it looks kind of scarce, it's sold out, but because of what's going on. You can have them do that. You could say it's a sellout crowd, even though it looks a little scarce, but it mentioned that, hey, the reason it's a sellout, but in this particular way, is because of what's going on. And that's about it. That's what you can do. You still have an audience, you have a sellout in a sense, rest is history. And again, it goes back to the first thing I said. It's because of the fact that governors, they know this, they know all this. But the thing is, it's because there are other people that are getting mixed signals that they don't want to move so quickly in letting all this happen and occur because of the fact that people are not getting a straight answer. And if they got that straight answer, things would be different. But yeah, fans at sporting events, despite what state governors are saying, oh yeah, it's going to happen. No doubt about it. I mean, you have several leagues working out alternatives of how they can make that happen. They're working with states that are going to allow, fans at events to happen. Like I said, they're working with. What I'm saying is, you have leagues working with states that are going to allow people to attend sporting events. Um, you know, very soon. They're working with them as alternative methods to get the seasons going, to get fans, in the audience. So, as long as they heed to guidelines and all that. So it's it's just something that right now right now the governors the here's the thing, the governors, they know this is going to happen, but the reason they're not coming out and saying that is because, again, like I said at the beginning, people are unsure of what's going on. They're getting mixed signals, and that's not a good thing. That is not a good thing whatsoever. But yeah, fans at sporting events, despite what state governors are saying, it's going to happen. It's going to happen in a way that to where, like I said, it may not be the kind of sellout crowd you're expecting, but you will have fans in the audience. There's no doubt about that. You'll have fans in the stands, stadiums. There's no doubt about that. You know, despite what people say. So yeah, and again, if it's the president that has to come out and say, "Hey, look, I'm going to use absolute authority to make sure fans attend these events, that sporting events happen in all the states, in all 50 states," I'll do it. And he would, he could, and he probably will if this keeps up. If the people cry out, if the people, the citizens of the American citizens cry out loud enough, he's going to say, "Look, I know what you guys are doing. I know what's happening here. So you know what? If you're not going to do it, I'll do it." And he would. Remember, he threatened to use absolute authority to reopen the country a lot sooner than what it was supposed to. So, across within all 50 states, but had to be talked down. Here, he could probably do it because it's not reopening the states, because the states are slowly doing it themselves. But if he understands fans want something to, distract them, or at least get them feel like they're getting back to normal, then he will use absolute authority to say, "Hey, look, Newsom, Michigan governor, blah blah blah. If you guys," it'll be like California governor, Michigan governor, Texas governor, blah blah blah. "If you guys aren't gonna allow fans back at sporting events to attend sporting events ends this year, I will." And he can do it. He can do it, and they know it. So I think right now what it mainly is the fact that the governors know that. It's just that they don't, like I said earlier, they don't want to deal with a situation to where, okay, one group of protesters have been dealt with because, okay, the state's reopened, but now we have to deal with another group of protesters because they want part of the state's closed because they're not sure what's going on, or they're still fearful. You know, it's that kind of stuff. And I think honestly, that's, again, it goes back to people getting mixed signals. But again, I think fans are going to be at sporting events despite what governors say, because I think when it gets down to it, it's going to be the president that says, "Hey, look, if you're not going to do something, I will." That's what I see. All right, so number 5. Could cinematic be the direction wrestling promotions go to get fans interested again? Okay, so one of the things that are infected or have been infected this year, mainly because of what's going on, is a lot of fighting events, boxing, MMA, wrestling. Now, some wrestling promotions have continued to move on, like AEW, WWE, a few small promotions here and there. And one of the ways they have gone, especially WWE, is the cinematic route. And they've gone the cinematic route for certain matches, or because of what's going on. They've had to go the cinematic route for AJ and Undertaker at WrestleMania for the Boneyard match. They had to go the cinematic route for John Cena and Bray Wyatt with the Firefly Funhouse at WrestleMania. They've had to go these various directions because of the fact that they couldn't go the direction they were hoping for originally. So, with that said, Ed, could they be heading in that direction to get fans interested in the product again? And it's not just WWE, but we're talking AEW, MLW, AAA, Impact. You know, could this, New Japan, could this be the direction they go in? And honestly, I think it is. I really do. I mean, tonight is Money in the Bank for WWE, the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, and the Money in the Bank match has already been taped taped and is in the can, ready for showing tonight. The reason it's already taped and in the can is because it took place in Stamford, Connecticut, at WWE headquarters, and they did it in a way that's unique to where both men and women matches are going to happen simultaneously, and it's filmed in a cinematic style to where you're probably going to get some music in the background and all that, but it's going to be done in such a cinematic style to where once you get to the rooftop and everything, that's when you might have some commentary or something like that down the line. But we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that's what they're doing with it. That's how they're doing the Money in the Bank matches this year. Is they're doing it in that cinematic style where the superstars start at the bottom of headquarters and they got to go all the way to the top. And going in this direction creates some interesting scenarios because you never know what you're going to see. You never know who's going to pop in, stuff like that. So it's really interesting. And again, this could be a direction that wrestling promotions go to get fans interested again. Impact has been doing this even after Matt Hardy, Broken Matt, and his brother Jeff and Jeremy Borash left the company. They've been taking what they've learned from them and applying it to some of the segments and vignettes and all that as well. I mean, they've done it with Killer Cross, who when he was there. They're doing it currently at times with Rosemary. They're doing it at times with who is it? They're doing it at times with certain superstars like Austin Theory, Michael Elgin, Moose. They're doing this. They've been doing it for quite. They've been doing it. Uh, um, they've been doing it for quite some time. And like I said, even after Matt and Jeff and Jeremy left, they've been doing it for quite some time. So, that's what's getting people interested in their product. I look at MLW as another promotion that I think could benefit from this as well, especially with the direction they're going in right now. One thing a lot of people ask each other is, are you still watching wrestling? And one of the wrestling promotions I'm watching as much as I can is MLW because I think it looks great. I think they're doing a good job. I mean, heck, they just finished off the Super Series, which obviously they filmed back a few months ago before this whole situation happened. So between them and AAA down in Tijuana, Mexico. So, so that's pretty cool. And here's the thing. They're heading right now in a direction that could make or break them with this whole Contra hostile takeover angle that they're doing. This whole Contra unit hostile takeover angle that they're doing. So, MLW, I think, could definitely benefit from it, especially with this Contra unit hostile takeover angle slash storyline that they're doing. So looks really interesting. Looks really interesting, and I think it could benefit from a cinematic, you know, uh, a direction, action, if you will, when it comes to certain moments. You know, AEW obviously could go and benefit from this with, Broken Matt being part of the company now and his unique creativeness could definitely benefit from it, especially if they're going to go that, what is it, that Ultimate, that if they're especially going to go in the direction of doing that deletion match between him and Jericho, or the Elite in the Inner Circle, not just Blood and Guts, but maybe do maybe that's how they do Blood and Guts. Maybe they do it in a cinematic style at the Hardy compound because of what's going on. You don't know. So that could be a benefit that AEW gets. I mean, we saw AEW already apply it with promoting Lance Archer, the Murder Hawk, I should say. Sorry about that. My arm just hit my cord there. But they already utilized it by owning vignettes ads for the Murder Hawk Lance Archer. They've already done it recently. Heck, they just recently did it with Brandy doing her little Brandy Rhodes doing her what is it? Her delivering her message, I should say, to Jake Roberts. So you can't tell me that a company like AEW and certain angles they got going on right now couldn't benefit from something like this. They could, and it would get fans interested. It would get them intrigued again. So could cinematic be the direction wrestling promotions go to get fans interested? Absolutely. AAA down in Mexico, I know, could do it. I know New Japan, when it starts up again, and it'll probably start up a lot sooner than you think, can benefit from it. A lot of people can. A lot of folks can. So I definitely see cinematic being the direction wrestling promotions go for right now, to get people interested in the product, to get fans interested in the product again. And then as they go in that direction, they can also slowly integrate, slowly get fans' interest, not just in the cinematic portion, but back into the in ring portion as well. Because if you use certain talent in this capacity, despite how fans might feel about that talent, then you transition that talent back into competing in the ring in front of them. You'd be surprised of the reaction fans could give to that. So yeah, I think cinematic could definitely be the direction wrestling promotions go to get fans interested again for the time being, and it could be a permanent one for a lot of them, depending on the situation. Um, okay, so last thing I want to talk about. Speaking of wrestling, in the past week or so, two individuals have triggered wrestling fans in a big way. One of them was, I think his name was Tom Segura or something. Tom Segura, I think. Yeah, Tom Segura. Yeah. So Tom Segura, I haven't heard much about it, but apparently Tom Segura basically came out on his podcast and insulted wrestling fans, calling them the R word, retards, if you will, and basically trashing the wrestling business. He lashed out at the wrestling business as a whole, at certain wrestlers, companies, apparently, basically because people enjoy it or whatever, and fans didn't take too kindly to that. And some people have already talked about it. OTRS Central has talked about it. A few others have talked about it. WWE Twitter, according to Forbes magazine here on Google, has lashed out at him. So yeah, not a lot of people are taking too kind to it. But they're not. But Tom's not the only one that's triggered some fans. Another person that triggered fans was Chris Cruz. Now, in case you guys don't know who Chris Cruz is, unless you're a long-time wrestling fan like I am, and the Strike Daddy OTR Central is, and even Solomonster, I believe. That Solomonster sounds off. Chris Cruz used to work for WCW. He was primarily the play-by-play guy for WCW Pro, WCW Main Event, which were both on Sunday. At times, WCW Worldwide, which was syndicated on the weekend, either Saturday and Sunday. At times, he would provide play-by-play for Saturday night's Main Event if he had to. Sometimes he would even, I think maybe once or twice, he helped provide commentary for Monday Nitro during its infancy. But he was mostly a play-by-play guy on those other shows that I mentioned, primarily Main Event, Pro, and on occasion Saturday Night. His biggest accomplishment in wrestling was when he commentated for, I think, two major events. The first one, I believe, was 1994's Worlds Collide, I think, when Worlds Collide, which was a AAA collaboration with WCW pay-per-view. And then the other was helping with commentary and play-by-play with the first World War III pay-per-view in 1995. So yeah, those were his biggest accomplishments. And what happened what happened was what I should say is what he did that triggered a lot of fans. Honestly, this past week was he snitched on AEW to the Maryland Athletic Committee, and the Maryland Athletic Committee fined AEW $10,000. Now, for someone like Tony Khan, which a lot of people have pointed out, $10,000 is chump change. Okay, and that's nothing for a billionaire. Okay, millionaire, billionaire, whatever. It's nothing. But yeah, Chris Cruz snitched on AEW to the Maryland Athletic Committee because this past November at the AEW Full Gear pay-per-view, you had the lights out match between Jon Moxley, FKA Dean Ambrose, and Kenny Omega. So you had that lights out match, like I said, between Jon Moxley, FKA Dean Ambrose, and Kenny Omega, and it was violent. It was a violent match. You had the inclusion of barbed wire, thumbtacks, a barbed wire trampoline, if you will, or whatever it was. I think it was a barbed wire spider web. That's what they call it. You had all this stuff. Like I said, you had glass, supposedly glass, whatever. You had everything. Maybe not as extreme as CZW or anything, but close. As some people have said, it's close. It was close to that. Anyway, so like I said, anyway, Chris Cruz obviously snitched off to Maryland about the violent tone the match took, even though it was lights out. Lights out mainly means non-sanctioned in any sport, in any fighting, combating sport. If they promote a lights out match or fight, that means that whatever happens between the combatants, they're not responsible. The ones responsible are the combatants themselves. Well, apparently, Chris Cruz, like I said, snitched off to Maryland about this, to the Maryland Athletic Committee, and they fined AEW about it. And this obviously triggered a lot of fans because a lot of fans who are AEW diehards or trying to help the company become something big or something relevant, I should say, to probably compete with the likes of WWE and maybe surpass WWE. Fans were not too thrilled about this because, they point out the fact, they even pointed out, I should say, the fact that this is a lights out match, which means AEW is not responsible. Maryland Athletic Committee's not responsible. But yet, you have Chris Cruz here, who now works at CNN Towers in some capacity, coming out and saying, look, these guys violated a lot of stuff that you guys don't want to occur in any sporting event, fighting event, period. So maybe you ought to do something. And a lot of people are wondering, and here's the thing: a lot of people are wondering why he did this. Why did Chris Cruz come out and basically snitch on AEW, basically, you know, tattletale on them, and maybe cause a rift in their relationship with Baltimore, Maryland, the Maryland Athletic Committee, or any future AEW events happening in Baltimore. Why would he do this? And I think honestly, what it is, and I didn't have the money to, let Alex know my thoughts on it because I was working, or at least at the end of my work shift when he did the video. Um, but I let just Alex, FKA Deluxe Man. Well, I wanted to let, like I said, just Alex, FKA Deluxe Man, know that in my opinion, it's sour grapes. I think the reason it's sour grapes is because despite the fact that he has a job, a cushy job, or whatever it is at CNN Towers, he's upset maybe that AEW didn't call upon him. That instead they called Tony Schiavone. I think that's what it is. Because he looks at the fact that because I think Chris Cruz still pays attention to wrestling, and he noticed that AEW not only hired Tony Schiavone away from MLW, they hired him away from MLW, but also not just have him as the um, fellow play-by-play slash commentator on Dynamite, but also have him as a commentator, somewhat, or a host on Dark. And I think Chris Cruz might have sour grapes. Like, wait a minute, I could have done that for you. Well, he could have done Dynamite or something. Again, that's just my speculation that it's sour grapes on his part. But who knows what it is? Who knows what the reason was? But um, I think honestly, you know, again, I think honestly it has to be sour grapes. I really do. Again, I'm not saying that's the fact. I'm not saying that's true. Maybe he just doesn't like violence in wrestling. But then again, he was part of WCW and he had to have seen a lot of violent stuff. Even prior to Monday Nitro launching, he had to see some violent stuff and even call some violent stuff. So I think someone mentioned that I think when he helped commentate or at least provide commentary for when Worlds Collide back in 94, 93, he had to commentate or do play-by-play for a violent match there. So, what's the big difference? You know what I'm saying? What's the big difference? So, I don't know. I think honestly, in my opinion, it's sour grapes. That's what I think it is. I think it's sour grapes. He's probably mad at the fact that AEW didn't call upon him to probably come on board and be part of this. In some capacity, maybe be the host of Dark. Well, Schiavone could stay as the play-by-play guy along with Jim Ross and Excalibur for Dynamite. Or maybe even be a play-by-play guy for Dark, instead of Excalibur, and be the one that, does play-by-play with various guest commentators like Taz and MJF and a variety of them. So who knows? Who knows? But yeah, fans were not too happy with Chris Cruz obviously snitching upon AEW to Maryland Athletic Committee for the lights out match between Moxley and Omega at Full Gear, I should say, in November. And then Tom Segura, I think, Tom Segura, what he did not fly well with fans and didn't fly well with wrestling personalities and alumni and insiders and even promotions themselves. So yeah, So yeah, fans were not, like I said, were not too happy. Wrestling promotions were not too happy. Insiders, alumni, Hall of Famers were not too happy. Not just with Chris Cruz. Some could probably understand where Cruz was coming from, I should say, but mostly with Tom Segura. You know, I guess to them, someone like a comedian like Tom Segura, who probably doesn't understand why people like wrestling, shouldn't be opening his mouth and saying anything. So yeah, it's one of those situations that where in 1 week's time, you've had wrestling fans, if not wrestling promotions, wrestlers, legends and all that be triggered and upset by not just one, but two individuals trying to hurt the wrestling business for no reason whatsoever. So, but yeah, the fans got triggered easily by not just one, but by two people this week. So, anyway, though, guys, that's pretty much going to do it for this Mother's Day edition of Topics on My Mind. I hope you guys all liked it. Thank you all for watching. Really appreciate it. Hope you all have a good and safe Mother's Day. Stay safe. Safe. Um, Stay safe. Do what you can to protect yourselves, but also do what you can to be with your families today. And until then, though, guys, thank you all for watching, and I will talk to you later. God bless. Take care. I'm out.